Be honest with yourself for 1 second. The instant something asks more of you than you expected, you look for the exit, a new plan, a new excuse, a reason it wasn't meant to be. You call it being realistic. There was a boy who watched his family murdered in front of him during the chaos of partition in 1947. He crossed a border alone, with nothing, and somehow decided that running was the one thing he still owned. Most people carrying that kind of loss shut down for life. He didn't transcend it in some clean, inspirational way. He channeled it, badly at first, then with terrifying precision. That's the part worth actually understanding. Look at what you actually don't do. You don't try the thing you're bad at in front of people. You don't ask the question that makes you look slow. You don't sign up for the race you might lose. Your days are built around minimizing discomfort, not building capacity. You optimize your schedule to avoid friction instead of seeking it out, and you call the resulting stillness balance. You've convinced yourself that feeling ready is a prerequisite for starting. So you wait for the right mood, the right morning, the right sign, while the version of you that could have started 6 months ago just sits there. After surviving partition, he joined the army almost by accident, tried out for a race on a dare, and lost badly. Instead of walking away, he built a training routine so brutal that coaches had to physically stop him. There was no algorithm telling him to do more. There was no app tracking his progress. He just decided that whatever the minimum was, he'd do more than that every single day, with no audience watching. In 1960, in Rome, he was in medal position for most of the race, and then, for one fatal moment, he looked over his shoulder. That single glance cost him bronze by a tenth of a second, a mistake that haunted him for the rest of his life. You tell yourself some people are just naturally disciplined, and you're not one of them. That belief is doing a lot of work to keep you exactly where you are. Nobody handed you catastrophe, so you never had to build the muscle that catastrophe forces into people. That's not a character flaw. It's just what happens when survival isn't in question. When nothing is actually threatening you, your brain has no urgent reason to override its default setting, which is conserve energy, avoid risk, stay where it's safe. That's biology, not weakness. When you've already lost your family, your home, your entire past, the fear of failing at something as small as a race stops having the same grip on you. He wasn't fearless. He'd just already survived the worst thing fear could warn him about. Grief without direction just sits in you and rots. He didn't heal from his loss by talking about it. He pointed it at a finish line and let it become the engine instead of the wound. You've never been in a position where the alternative to trying was starvation, homelessness, or death. So you've never discovered what you're actually capable of under real pressure. And some part of you is quietly relieved about that. You start something new, training, studying, building, and for 2-3 weeks you feel exactly the same amount of tired and exactly 0% closer to the person you wanted to become. That gap is where almost everyone quits. He collapsed during training more than once. He pushed his legs past what they were built for and paid for it in cramps, in injuries, in mornings where he genuinely could not stand up straight. People in his life thought the obsession was strange, maybe even self destructive. He didn't have a community cheering him on. He had people quietly wondering when he'd give this up and get a normal life. Years later, he was asked to race in Pakistan on the same soil where his family had been killed. Saying yes meant standing in the middle of his own trauma in front of a stadium full of people. He beat the fastest man in Pakistan on that trip, and the crowd there gave him the name that stuck for the rest of his life, the Flying Sikh. But that victory didn't bring his family back, and he never pretended it did. Decades later, in interviews, that single race in Rome still visibly cost him something to talk about. Discipline doesn't make pain disappear, it just means you keep moving while it's still there. You can train perfectly, prepare perfectly, execute almost perfectly, and still fall short by the smallest possible margin. That's not a sign you did it wrong. That's just what competing at your actual limit looks like. From the outside, it looks like willpower. From the inside, most days, it just looks like doing the unpleasant thing anyway. Because stopping felt worse than continuing. You assume that enough success will finally quiet the voice that says you're not enough. It won't. He became a national icon and still carried his losses with him until the day he died. He didn't get validation before the results came in. He got it after years of it, which means for most of the hard part, he was operating on belief he generated himself, with no outside proof he was right. He wasn't running because he felt inspired that morning. He was running because he'd built a structure, a schedule, a standard, a routine that didn't ask his mood for permission. You don't need to survive a massacre to build the same discipline he built. What you need is the same decision he made, to stop waiting for the right feeling and start building the routine instead. Comparing your struggles to his and deciding yours don't qualify is just another way of letting yourself off the hook. Whatever you're carrying is enough raw material to work with if you're willing to actually use it. He didn't decide once, in 1947, to become disciplined forever. He decided again every single morning for years, often when nobody would have blamed him for stopping. A tenth of a second. That's the distance between an Olympic medal and a lifetime of what ifs. Most of your life is decided in margins that small, the ones you can still influence with an extra 10 minutes of effort. The moment he turned his head to check his competitors was the moment he lost. Checking on everyone else's progress instead of running your own race has the exact same cost, just spread out slower. He didn't get fast from one heroic effort. He got fast from thousands of ordinary mornings nobody filmed, each one slightly less impressive than you'd imagine, stacked on top of each other for years. He didn't wait for a coach to discover him or a system to validate him. He started running on a dirt track with borrowed shoes before anyone believed it mattered. Whatever version of that is available to you right now is enough to begin. Whatever is stopping you today, tiredness, a bad mood, an inconvenient schedule, measure it honestly against what he was working against. It rarely survives the comparison. There's a specific task, a specific conversation, a specific habit. You keep circling and not starting. You know exactly what it is right now. And that's not an accident. It's never the dramatic effort that changes your life. It's the boring rep you talked yourself out of on a random Tuesday. Repeat it enough times that it became a pattern you couldn't have predicted from the outside. Somewhere out past the discomfort you keep avoiding is a version of you that's stronger, calmer, more capable. And every day you choose ease instead, that version stays exactly as far away as it was yesterday. One bad week and you decide the whole plan was wrong. He lost the biggest race of his life on the world stage and treated it as information, not a verdict, and kept training the next morning. The consistency you're missing in your training is the same consistency you're missing in your relationships. Showing up on the ordinary days, not just when it's easy or when someone's watching. You keep your ambitions fuzzy on purpose because a specific goal can be measured and a measured goal can fail. Vagueness is just fear wearing a more acceptable outfit. You look at people with more resources, more luck, more support, and use that comparison as proof you can't do it either. Meanwhile, someone with drastically less than you built something extraordinary out of nothing. You don't need his intensity on day one. You need one honest rep today, done on a day you didn't feel like it. And then you need to do that again tomorrow. Sit with that question honestly instead of answering it fast. The thing you're waiting to feel ready for is very likely the exact thing you should start today. Unready, imperfect, and unqualified. Not everything. One thing. Choose the rep you've been avoiding. Commit to it daily for 30 days, no matter your mood, and reply below with what you picked. So this stops being private and starts being real.